Hello, I'm Branden Burks, and today I'll be talking about a challenge that's becoming increasingly important for organizations: managing generational differences in the workplace. My focus will be on millennials and Gen Z, who together make up the fastest growing portion of the workforce, and how managers can effectively engage them for better collaboration, retention, and performance. Here's the agenda for my presentation. We'll start with an overview of the topic and my hypothesis, followed by a quick breakdown of the generational groups we're focusing on. Then I'll share some key research findings, discuss communication and work preferences, and explore how feedback and knowledge sharing differ across generations. I'll explain my research methodology, summarize the main conclusions, offer recommendations, and discuss the implications for the future of work. Then afterwards, we'll wrap up with my references page and closing remarks. My hypothesis um, is that workplaces that adapt communication and engagement strategies to, to the needs of different generations will see better performance, lower conflict, and stronger retention. Millennials and Gen Z are reshaping workplace norms, from expectations around communication to approaches to collaboration. Understanding these Understanding and managing these differences isn't just something that's nice to have. It's becoming a critical leadership skill that every manager should possess. Each generation brings unique strengths and expectations. Boomers tend to value stability and respect for hierarchy, while Gen X often prefers independence and flexibility. Millennials lean toward collaboration and want their work to align with a purpose. Gen Z, our youngest group, is highly tech savvy, pragmatic, and expects speed in communication. The key takeaway is that these differences influence how people work, communicate, and respond to leadership. Deal and colleagues found that while generational stereotypes are often exaggerated, real and meaningful differences exist in values, preferred communication methods, and how employees want feedback. The practical takeaway is that leaders should not manage every generation identically. They should not manage every generation the same. Adjusting communication styles and feedback frequency to meet generational preferences can significantly improve engagement. Costanza's meta analysis reinforces that there are measurable generational differences in organizational commitment and job satisfaction. This supports the idea that tailored management practices are more effective. However, the authors also warn against overgeneralizing. Each person is different, each person is an individual, and generational trends are just one lens to consider. When it comes to limitations, we have to be very careful. Uh, Most research is typically Western focused and relies heavily on self reported surveys, which can be biased. And while generational patterns exist, applying them rigidly can lead to stereotyping, which is counterproductive. Communication styles and tips. Millennials like open, transparent communication and collaboration tools such as Slack and Teams. Gen Z, on the other hand, prefers visual content, instant messaging, and short, frequent updates. Managers should blend multiple communication channels uh, and keep messages concise but informative. So, as you can see, there are a few differences between millennials and Gen Z. Gen Z uh, likes their information quick, short, and concise, whereas millennials, they would prefer a one-on-one, a back and forth conversation uh, to get the message across. Work ethic and collaboration. Millennials tend to thrive when they see a clear connection between their work and a larger mission, whereas Gen Z, on the other hand, often prefers independent problem solving and values autonomy. So, um, millennials, they love to see a target when they see their work, right? They don't believe in just working just to check off a check mark. They want to work for a larger mission, right? But a tip that I have for work ethic and collaboration for managers, you have to make sure that you're balancing mean both means giving purpose driven tasks, but also space for individual creativity, right? You have millennials who are driven to a common goal, whereas you have, on the other hand, Gen Z statistically are more entrepreneurial, more independent. So you have to make sure that you find that correct balance. Performance feedback. Annual reviews aren't enough anymore. Millennials value regular one on one check ins, while Gen Z prefers instant digital recognition. Um, a tip that I would give managers, right? Continuous feedback. A continuous feedback culture ensures both groups feel seen and supported. When you make sure that you're always recognizing your employees for doing a great job, they will feel as though they are valued. They'll feel more than just a number. They'll feel the company. They'll feel everything that the team embodies as a culture. Knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer isn't just top down anymore. Um, Reverse mentoring, where younger employees share tech expertise and senior employees share institutional wisdom, is highly effective. So, reverse mentoring is honestly one of my most important points on this entire slide, because what a millennial may know may be something that a Gen Z uh, person may not know. And on the other hand, a millennial may not be as tech savvy as a Gen Z. So reverse mentoring both ways will build a great trust between both generations, both cultures, to have a great company. And lastly, combining live mentoring sessions with resources like recorded tutorials works the best. So you always want to make sure that you have live mentoring sessions where everyone can collaborate, everyone can bring ideas off of each other, and help with the reverse mentoring so everyone can get aligned on the same common goal. Decision making preferences. Millennials tend to want buy in from all stakeholders, while Gen Z, on the other hand, they make faster decisions if they have data to support them, right? So millennials, they want to come together as a team and gather a consensus answer. Whereas Gen Z, um, if they see the correct data, if it's 100%, um, they will pitch it to the team. But if they do have the data to back that decision up, they do feel as though that is enough information to make a decision, right? So my tip to give to the managers, I would say, let's make sure that we blend these approaches by giving teams all of the facts and then coming together as a collaborative uh, team to make a decision, right? You don't want to just make a decision on your own because you are, you know, an employee with the team, but you also want to make sure that you have great evidence to back your decisions. Methodology. I would take a mixed methods approach, right? My research approach would combine both quantitative and qualitative approaches, right? It will combine quantitative surveys to identify patterns with qualitative focus groups to understand the context of whatever the project is, right? So we want to make sure that we have quantitative surveys and qualitative focus groups to get a full grasp of the context. Then this mix allows for both statistical and contextual insights. Conclusions. When managed well, generational diversity can lead to innovation and stronger teams. But unmanaged, it can cause conflict and turnover. The problem is, many organizations still lack formal strategies to address these differences. So, I would recommend a structured mentorship program, right? There are plenty of millennials always looking to mentor the younger generation, right? It's all about the Gen Z being willing to accept the mentorship programs, right? Um, Also, the companies. If your company does not have a mentorship program, create one. There's always opportunity to better yourself, better others, help others. You know, and there's always people willing to help, right? So I would recommend a mentorship program for your company or as a manager. Um, and also adopting multiple communication channels to suit preferences, right? You're going to manage, as a manager, you're going to manage generations of maybe boomers all the way down to Gen Z. You have to make sure that you have Slack, Teams, instant messaging, you know, all of these things to uh, touch on each in every generation. And lastly, we need to make sure that we need to take manager training to avoid bias, right? We need to make sure that we train the managers to spot and avoid generational bias, right? Managers, as a manager who is fairly young, um, some would say that I would, I guess, be biased to people around my age, right? So making sure that the generational bias is not there, it would cause turmoil within your team. So make sure to never have generational bias. Uh, yeah, generational bias. Implications for the future. As hybrid and remote work become more common, generational communication differences will be amplified. So what it's saying is, as the world continues to grow, coming out of this COVID state, hybrid and remote work are starting to become a norm, a normal thing now. So communication with Gen Z and millennials will need to be amplified, right? We need to make sure that everyone is continuing to stay in communication with each other. Also, organizations that proactively manage these differences will have a real competitive advantage in recruiting, retaining, and engaging talent. So, once the team understands this generational awareness, it'll make your company a lot more, um, a lot more engaging. It'll make your company seem as though a lot of people want to join because they understand the differences between the generations. And here are the references that supported today's presentation.